In Scotland, local governments are called council areas. Today we'll be in two of them, Stirling and Argyll and Bute, as we travel from Edinburgh on the east coast to Ilse of Eriska on the west coast, where we'll be spending the night. Our first stop is Stirling Castle. Our first view of the palace is from the Queen Anne Gardens. This is the first Renaissance palace in the British Isles. It was begun in the 1530s and was completed in 1542. The combination of Renaissance architecture and exuberant late Gothic details make it one of the most architecturally significant buildings in Scotland. This gatehouse provides entry to the castle proper. It was probably completed around 1506. The oldest building in the inner close is the King's Old Building, completed around 1497. The Great Hall at Stirling Castle is next, completed around 1503. It's the first example of Renaissance-influenced royal architecture in Scotland. The Great Hall lives up to its name, but in 1800, the original roof was replaced and the room reconfigured as army barracks. This historically correct restoration was completed in 1999. Makes you want to sit on the throne and order up a banquet. Between the King's Old Building and the Great Hall is the Chapel Royal. Mary, Queen of Scots, was crowned here in 1543. She was 10 months old at the time. Sherry and David inspect the Grand Battery, built in 1689. They were fired for the first and last time in 1747, defending the castle against a Jacobite army. We enter the palace through the inner courtyard. Docents in period costumes explain how people lived in the castle in 1540. The Royal Standard of Mary of Guise, Mary, Queen of Scots' mother. The Historic Scotland organization commissioned a set of 7 handmade tapestries for Stirling Castle as part of an effort to furnish the castle as it was in the 16th century. A period wardrobe reproduction in the Queen's bedchamber. Altarpiece in the Queen's bedchamber. A painted wood-carved ceiling rose in the King James bedchambers. The ceiling of the King's Presence Chamber was originally decorated with a series of carved oak portrait rondelles. The originals have been restored and are housed in a special temperature and humidity-controlled exhibition space in the palace basement. The carvings are the finest examples of Scottish Renaissance wood carvings in existence today. They almost didn't make it. The carvings were taken down after the ceiling collapsed in 1777. Of the estimated 56 original heads, 38 have survived. Some of the portraits are believed to be of kings, queens, and courtiers. Others are classical or biblical figures. Below the castle are earthworks where a formal garden was in the 16th century. Next to it is a modern concert venue. Van Morrison, REM, and Bob Dylan have all played here, but most recently it's been the Scottish Chamber Orchestra. We stopped for lunch at Meadow Park in Stirling Town. Our next stop is the Falls of Dochart. The falls are a cascade of waterfalls on the River Dochart at Kilchurn. The Bridge of Dochart, first built in 1760, offers a good view of the Cascades. David gives us a lesson in native plant identification here. This is the ancestral burial ground for the Clan MacNab. Our next stop is Kilchurn Castle on Loch Linnhe. It's a very picturesque landscape. Kilchurn Castle was built in the mid-1400s and was the base of the Campbells of Glenorchy for 150 years. In 1760, the castle was badly damaged by lightning and was abandoned. We try not to disturb the sheep that add to the landscape. Our last stop for today is the Isle of Eriska and our hotel of the same name. It was built in 1884 in the Scottish baronial style. Like many of these manor houses, the owners abandoned the property in the 1930s. In 1973, it was purchased and converted to a hotel. We have dinner at the Deck Bistro and enjoy the spectacular sunset. Our adventure today is a boat ride down the Loch Linnhe, then through the Sound of Mull with a lunch stop at Tobermory on the Isle of Mull. Captain Smith and the Schiehallion are right on time. The boat is named for a mountain in the Highlands. We load up and we're off. There's a little chop from the wind, but the sky is blue. We're traveling along Lismore Island. The mountains are on the Isle of Mull. This is a broch, an Iron Age circular dry stone structure. Archaeologists have found an enamel brooch from Roman times, an 8th century pin, and an 11th century Norse pin and rivets here. There are lots of harbor seals. Looking back on our wake to the Isle of Eriska and the Highlands. These Caledonian McBrain ferries serve all the ports and islands along the Scottish coast. One of many small farms on Lismore Island. Lismore Lighthouse was built in 1833. This pretty bridge connects the rock that Lismore Lighthouse sits on with the rest of Lismore Island. We're starting to see some bird life. We turn into the Sound of Mull. The Dochart Castle is strategically located on the Isle of Mull at the entrance to the Sound of Mull. The castle dates back to the 13th century and is the seat of the Clan MacLeod. It's a great day for sailing on the Sound of Mull. Another Caledonian McBrain ferry. This is one of the largest ones. We pass the ruins of Kilchurn Castle. It was the seat of the Clan Donald in the early 14th to the late 15th century. This is a standby safety vessel at Loch Linnhe at Morvern on the mainland. St. Columba's Chapel was built in 1838 on the site of an ancient castle. This is Tobermory, our lunch stop, but we're going out to the open ocean at the end of the Sound, and then we'll stop on the way back. As one would expect, there's a lot of ship traffic on the Sound of Mull. This is Ardmore Point, Mull's most northeasterly point at the mouth of the Sound. We see a pod of dolphins at the mouth of the Sound of Mull. This is Ardna Merchant Lighthouse, 118 feet of pink granite built in 1849. This is Corracht Ardmore, the most westerly point on the island of Great Britain. We turn around and head back along the coast of the Isle of Mull. This is Rubinangal Lighthouse. Tobermory is the capital of the Isle of Mull and our lunch stop. It was founded as a fishing village in 1788. Now it's the home of various tour and charter operators. And since this is Scotland, there is a distillery. We walk down the picturesque street. Lunch is at a very traditional pub, the Mishnish. Then back to the boat for more exploring. This strange vessel is specially outfitted to service offshore fish farms. We spot a white-tailed eagle, part of an effort to reintroduce the eagle to Scotland. The last native pair in Britain last bred in 1916. This juvenile shows that the reintroduction program is succeeding. The first successful breeding of reintroduced eagles was here on Mull in 1985. We spot cormorants as we cruise up the other side of Linsmore Island. And another castle, Glen Sanda, from the late 15th century. This is the Glen Sanda Super Quarry, quite shocking after all the wild and pastoral landscapes we've seen. Granite aggregate has been mined here since 1986. We thank Captain Smith for a great boat trip, and we hop off on the Isle of Eriska dock. Then back to the hotel for dinner and packing. We're off to the Highlands tomorrow.